we've been working out on these processes and these methods of trading. And as we head into a new calendar year 2025, this is something which is giving us a lot of excitement, because in the past 2 or 3 months we've been witness to some super clear signals. The markets you can see have reduced volumes, but the volumes which have been left are super clear volumes, and they've been giving us very clean, definite signals to trade. And that is what is exciting for us as we move into the coming year, right? So let's have a quick look at charts, and then we'll talk a bit about what is the proper process to trade in these markets. I have a Nifty futures chart on screen, and no doubt some of you have looked at it, and there are a lot of elements which go into the making of an order flow chart. So let me just zoom out and bring to you larger variation of this screen, and we get that through these candlestick charts. And this is where the market has been. So it's come down, it's come down, it's come down, right, from this zone, where it was around that 24,800 zone, met a lot of supply along the way. And these pink ones, are where your initiative sellers, had come in previously, right? And for a long time, there was only IS initiative sellers in this down move. But in the past 2 sessions, we've been witness to a lot of initiative buying. And these are the yellow ones, which give you that initiative buying. And we got about 3 of them, even one, today. And the market has consistently, held the lows, of those IB. But what really happens, into a gap is what the market does post the gap. And that is what we focus on as order flow traders, as derivative traders who are tracking the short-term moves of the market. Whenever we see a gap, the most important takeaway for us is how is the market responding to that gap. And this is an order flow chart off screen, and this is an order flow of traded volumes, right? Now, there are a few things we look at when we're looking at this chart. And the first thing, if you are having this chart open, is you're focused on this 10-bar call, which is around that 40,000 number. Now, for those who saw this order flow chart yesterday, and I posted it on X as well, on Twitter as well, this is consistent. This is consistent with the number of yesterday, which was in that region of about -30, -40,000. Now, a few things go for us when we are speaking about a COT. The COT, because it is a number generated off the demand and supply of the market, and I'll repeat that again. It's a number generated off the demand side traded volumes and the supply side traded volumes of the market. And you have to pay attention to this number when it is big. So I will not really pay attention to this number when it is about -5,000 or -6,000 or -7,000 here and there. There is always demand and supply in the market, and the market has to show us demand and supply. And because the market is showing you live demand and supply, this number will keep ticking. There will always be a number on screen, and that number will always speak to you. What we have to note over here is what really happens when this market has got some extra imbalance via the demand and via the supply. So in that case, we look at that number as being above -20,000 or below +20,000, and that tells you that there is more demand or more supply side imbalance hitting the tape. And we had that number of -30,000 at the close yesterday. Through
Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. A quick sound check. Great. Welcome to this Monday 5 p.m. session where we start with the weekly review. But as we are very close to the end of the month, let us start with what we have done in the month of July in spot. And then we'll have a look at the weekly report and the previous week's auction. And then we'll come down to the Nifty futures and the Bank Nifty futures daily chart along with the order flow. So what we have on screen right now is the Nifty Spot monthly chart, and we have discussed this in our previous sessions, and we have seen how this rollover point of 25610, which was marked for July, has left us selling tail in spot, and because of this, we knew that the PLR was to the downside. And once we took out this extension handle of 25317, we left a sell side reference here at 25331. So last week when we were discussing on Monday, I was explaining how we are forming a double distribution trend down profile on the monthly, which can become a triple distribution one as long as this extension handle of 25331 holds. And this did hold, and we have come back to make new lows for the month, both on Friday as well as today. So what we have done today, we have also left a failed auction on spot as well as futures. So this failed auction will be one important reference for this expiry week. And already on the monthly time frame, we know that we are forming a triple distribution trend down profile. We have left a fresh extension handle today at 24806, which was the low of Friday. So that will be our reference, immediate reference, and the highs of today, which was a 24889, the failed auction of today, the C side, will be our higher reference. So these two would be our references for this week going into the monthly expiry, and we will watch how the auction behaves with regard to these two levels. On the downside, what do we have? We have this monthly failed auction at 24473, and then we have this lower HVN at 24389 and this buying tail at 24150. These are our lower references on the monthly time frame. Mind you, we are looking at the monthly chart, so all the references which are marked are of the higher time frame. So what were the other important references we had? We had this POC 25109 and 25009. So we had spoken about how when the first time we tested this 25009, we got some demand coming in and we got this bounce higher. But the bounce higher resulted in a pullback high. And same thing happened last week. We left another pullback high at 25244, very close to the uh, prior pullback high of 25255, I think. So it was telling us that this DD zone is still held by the sellers. Whenever the auction was going here, it was getting rejected. So after this, what we did, we have broken this. If you note the highs of Friday, it was right at this neutral extreme VWAP. 25010 was the open high start on Friday we had. So that was very clearly telling us how on the monthly time frame the seller has now taken control over this buy side reference we had. So now, and this has now become our supply point. It will change, it will show us change of polarity. So we have already got some lower references for this week. So we will have that as our reference. 24806 would be our immediate reference on the upside, and 24889, which is the failed auction from today in spot, would be the higher reference. As long as these two are holding, we are looking for a close around at the lows for the month of July, and we could even tag this 24473, which was the lows of June and which was a failed auction. We had formed a neutral extreme profile on the monthly time frame in June, so this reference would be an important reference. So we will, just like how we have got a failed auction on the daily time frame today, this we had got on the monthly, and from this we started to trend higher. So this is as far as the Nifty spot is concerned. Let us now move on to the Bank Nifty spot. So Bank Nifty spot also we discussed how we were forming a nice Gaussian curve on the monthly time frame, and last week we saw multiple days doing the 80% rule. We saw almost 3-4 days last week doing the 80% rule on upside as well as downside. But what was crucial was the close on Friday. You can see how we have the close is at the extreme away from this value, and it is the first time in this month where the uh, auction has closed above the value, away from the value. And what has happened, you know, we have spoken about this POC also. So we did test this POC couple of times in the month, but Friday we had closed well below this POC also. 56528 was the close. So that was also telling us that now things are getting little bearish for Bank Nifty. From the balance, there is a small imbalance which has started to form. And that imbalance has given us more confirmation today. Why? Because we have got a failed auction in Bank Nifty also, and that failed auction has come right below that POC level. So we had marked the monthly POC as our reference. It was our support. And for till now, in the month that was holding. Yes, we did break it intraday couple of times, but we used to always get a bounce from that. And on the upside, this 57260, which was the rollover point, was holding the upside. We saw on the weekly charts how the multiple week value area high was right at that 57260. So we were not able to get any demand above that 57260. So hence we were always testing that, coming down lower and taking support at this POC. But the Friday close below this POC, which is coming at a close of a month, is telling us that now the auction is ready to get into an imbalance mode. So although on the monthly it is still a balanced profile, the signs of imbalance have started to form. So we will have to follow what it shows. We have already got a failed auction near the POC, and you can see this neutral extreme VWAP of 56,200, which was holding till uh, previous week. That was exactly the low we had made, and that was the lows for the month. But today we have broken that, and not only broken that, you can see this pullback high in the LTPO which we got has stopped right at that VWAP of monthly time frame. So going forward, this will be our first reference. This could show us change of polarity, and then we have this failed auction which is coinciding with the monthly POC. So these two, which were support points for us so far in the month of July, have now become supply points. They will be the resistance level which the buyers will have to take out for any move higher in the remaining 3 sessions which are left for the month. So let's see how this goes. Bank Nifty spot can continue to probe lower provided it is below this 56,200, and we will cover these hypos in our weekly report, and we'll update with the daily hypos which are forming. So the monthly time frame, we have seen how both of them are below the VWAP of June, which was the neutral extreme month. So we are in sync for a close at the lows, both in Nifty as well as Bank Nifty. But yes, we have the references marked out, and we will have to stay below them in the coming 3 sessions for us to continue lower. So let us now have a look at the weekly spot chart which was published on the forum, and have a quick look at what we did in Nifty last week. So Nifty for the third consecutive week has formed a neutral extreme profile to the downside. So when do we form neutral extreme profiles? Neutral profiles are profiles where both sides of initial balance are extended. And neutral extreme is a profile where one party has failed and the other party takes advantage. So they close it in their favor. So for the third time on the weekly time frame, third consecutive time on the weekly time frame, the buyers failed and the sellers pushed it lower. So you can see how last week, if you see the daily chart, we opened lower, we probed below the previous week close, but we did not get supply. So because of that, we left an initiative buying tail. We got back into this weekly value. This weekly value, in spite of it being a neutral extreme profile, was a nice Gaussian curve. So we know that once the value, the auction gets into that value, it is on for a 80% rule. And 80% rule is a very important market profile setup, provided we are aware about how we need to make use of it and where you need to make use of it. 80% rule works best in balanced value area zones. And so that is what we need to look for, about where we have balanced value area zones. And that is where we will get our marker. So this was the value area of the previous week, and you can see how the probe below previous week's lows failed. We got this initiative buying tail and we got back into previous week's value. So this entry into previous week's value triggers the 80% rule in this week's value, and you can see how we continued that 80% rule on the upside for the next 2 days, and exactly at this value area high we first left this LTPO, single LTPO level there, suggesting rejection, and that was confirmed by a initiative selling tail on Thursday. So the probe above the weekly value area high was met with rejection. That means there was no demand, and so sellers took over. And this is, once that happened, you can see how we completed the reverse 80% rule on Thursday, and we continued to probe lower on Friday. So this weekly VPOC of 24790 was our target, and we just barely managed to hold that. The low we made on Friday was 24806. So it was almost like tagging the 24790, but that is meaning that we almost hit the objective. So you can see what we have done on the daily time frame. The first day was a green one. It did not make a big range extension upside, but it was a P-shaped profile, and more importantly it left this buying tail. Hence we had this marked in green. Then we had a normal variation day down as the higher open could not take off this POC, and we formed a B-shaped profile. But the important point here was we formed mainly higher value and we stayed above this value area low. So that was telling us that the 80% rule is still in play. And then the next day on Wednesday, we formed a small range trend day up. It was a small range day, but the trend day saw that we held above this POC and we went on to complete the 80% rule in the weekly value. And then on Thursday, we had the first back-to-back sessions of red days. We started with the trend day down, which a clear rejection about the weekly value, and we went on to break below the value area low and closed below this. So you can see how the close also was telling us that now it wants to move away from this value. The auction is tested the value thoroughly. It went up, it came down, and it is closed above this. So this was telling us that we can continue lower, and that is what happened on Friday. We formed another normal variation day down and a B-shaped profile, but we left an initiative selling tail, and this initiative selling tail came right at that neutral extreme VWAP of 25009, which we have marked for the month of July. So that is how it tells, and that is why we were more bearish for today, because we left a initiative selling tail at the neutral extreme VWAP. So we were definitely looking for more downside. So this was the weekly wrap up. It has made a hat trick of neutral extreme down weekly profiles, emphasizing how the buyers have repeatedly failed in the month of July as we enter the final week, with the current value zone being a well balanced one. So we still have a well balanced value area because we have been overlapping. The value area, if you see the weekly chart, has been completely overlapping. But what it has done, it has left a neutral extreme handle at 24882, and which will be the immediate supply point along with the selling tail of Friday. So on the downside, we were looking at this unvisited VPOC, which would be the immediate reference, below which we are looking for a test of this buying tail from 24593 to 24473. So here we are looking at the weekly time frame. So that is why we will look at the weekly references. So this green line which you can see on the weekly chart is that buying tail which I am mentioning. So this buying tail is this this is the 24553. So this will be our support for this week, 24593 to 24473, which is the lows of the month of June. So these were the hypos which are given for today, and you can see what we have done today. We have not been able to take out this halfback from Friday. The highs we made today was 24889, wherein we have left a failed auction. So I'll just quickly open up the weekly chart, and then we'll switch on to the daily to see what the references for the coming days would be. But before that, we'll just finish what we did in Bank Nifty spot last week. So Bank Nifty spot was not as bearish as Nifty last week. We had a normal variation profile to the upside in Bank Nifty. And why was that? Because we made an extension higher and we completed one objective of the range extension. But similar to what we saw in Nifty, you can see how in Bank Nifty also we left this buying tail. We did not break below this lows. And this low is where we had discussed that neutral extreme VWAP from June was. It was also a weekly extension handle 56205. That was exactly where we made a low in the prior week, which held, and we got an initiative buying tail. So this initiative buying tail took us back into this weekly balance value area, and we started the 80% rule. So you can see how this again was a good balanced value area zone. So the 80% rule setup was definitely on in this, and that is what we did. We completed the setup on the second day itself on Tuesday. We tested this value area high, but what did we do? We got rejected and we left a initiative selling tail. So this was telling us that the supply is prevalent in this zone, and this you can see is overlapping from the last week, and it was coinciding with that rollover point. So same thing, this 80% rule to the downside took support where at the value area low. We held above this value area low, and we again did the 80% rule to the upside on Wednesday. So you can see not once but multiple times you can make use of the same setup if you know how it works. So finally what we did in Bank Nifty was this final probe of 80% rule to the downside stalled midway on Thursday, and it continued on Friday with a close below this value area low. So when you are closing away from value, it is telling you that the imbalance may continue in the next session. When you are closing within value, you are expecting that value to continue, the balance to continue. But here on Friday, it was very clearly telling that we are moving away from this value. And you can see this POC which had formed below the monthly POC of 56608. So all this was signs which was telling us the Bank Nifty is also getting weaker. And on the monthly time frame, on the weekly time frame, what we did was similar to Nifty. We had a green day, then a red day, then a green day, then couple of red days. So the weekly profile was a normal variation one, but this small buying tail was almost tested on Friday, and you can see the balance value was completely overlapping. In fact, the value has been completely overlapping entire month, which is why we have got the monthly balance Gaussian curve. So it was always getting support near the value area low and supply near the value area high. But what it did on Friday was it closed below this, and what it has done today is again a further move away from that. So the weekly profile is a normal variation one, completely inside value. We'll need to take out the buying tail from 56439 to 255. So this has been taken out in spot, and you can see how we have gone on to probe lower. So our target on the downside on the weekly time frame would be this 55682, which is a weekly VPOC, and then we have the buying tail from 55376 to 149 from again the lows of June, which would be our lower objective for the monthly settlement. So let us now quickly open up the spot weekly chart in both Nifty as well as Bank Nifty and see what we have done today. So this is the weekly chart of spot. You can see how on weekly we are well below this value, and what we have done is we tested that neutral extreme handle of 24882, but we have left a seaside, typical seaside, which got rejected today. We have left a responsive selling tail, and this has resulted in a failed auction over here. So we have broken below this uh, unvisited POC of 24790. And so on the weekly time frame, we are looking set to test this buying tail from the 9th to 13th of June. So this is what is our support for this monthly settlement. And if this breaks, we are looking for more downside in the coming days. And that will decide how the month of August would turn out to be. So on the upside, this 24889 failed auction would be our reference. And we have an extension handle here at the initial balance low of today, so which is at 24732. That will be our uh, immediate reference on the upside. So if I shift this to the daily spot chart, and if we need to take out the references for tomorrow, although that will be updated in the report and we will have the hypos put out for tomorrow, I'll just quickly turn this to a daily chart. And we'll see where we have headed. So the POC is around the lows. This was also an unvisited VPOC on the daily time frame. You can see this 13th June VPOC was right there. So that is where we have taken support and we have stacked. Another very important cue I wanted to show you, but I missed on the monthly time frame. I'll just take you back to the monthly time frame. So you can see this monthly value area low of June. This is 24645, and that is where we have stalled today. So if I just pull up this, so you can see here the value area low is 24675, which is where we have stalled today. So that will be one cue, and it will tell us whether it wants to move away from this monthly value of June. And that is where the POC is also formed. And we also saw on the daily chart how the 13th June VPOC was also right there, which we have tagged and we have closed around it. So that will be our reference, opening reference for tomorrow. And if we remain below that, then we are looking for more downside. We already have these levels marked up in our daily chart. So we will test this. 24650 already has been tested. This was a pullback low from 13th. Then we have this buying tail. So you can see how that buying tail on the weekly, which we are seeing, is also the buying tail from the 13th of June, 24593. So this will be that all important support going forward. Else we are looking for more downside. So let's now have a look at what we have done in the Bank Nifty spot and a quick look at the daily chart of Bank Nifty before we uh, close in on the futures and the order flow of today. So an interesting thing in Bank Nifty would be seen. You can see how the Bank Nifty value area high was right where our rollover point for the series was. This is 57260, this level. And you can see how last 3 weeks we held this rollover and we had a weekly VPOC at 57422, which we are not able to tag. So these two became our supply zone and we were not able to get any buy side signal here. And that is the reason what we have done now is we have moved away from this 3-week overlapping value. We closed away from the value on last Friday, and we had closed previous week also away from the value, but this got rejected. Why? Because I was telling you how 56205 was a weekly extension handle, and this is where we made the lows that week. And from there we got a bounce back, but we again got rejected at this 57260. And then we have this move away has not given us a bounce. What we have done in fact is continued the imbalance lower, and that confirmation has come from a failed auction today. You can see similar to what we saw in Nifty, we have got a failed auction and a C side in Bank Nifty also, and we have closed below this extension handle. So this support which was holding Bank Nifty is now showing us change of polarity. So if you look at the daily time frame, what would be the references? This is what we were looking at. This is mentioned in the report also. This unvisited VPOC of 55682 would be our first objective, and then below that we are looking for this buying tail. So that is how we are placed in Bank Nifty spot. A quick look at the daily Bank Nifty spot to take out references for tomorrow. So this is, see, the day started with a initiative buying tail at the lows. So we were looking for an open rejection reverse kind of a start. But if it was a strong open rejection reverse, we would have swiped through this entire day's range of Friday, which was a trend day down. But what we did, we made a typical seaside extension, and that seaside stalled right at that 56008 monthly POC. So that was showing us change of polarity, and this change of polarity is coming at an important monthly reference. So you know that the auction is to continue the downside move, and that is why what we have done, we have left the scene of crime here. This would be an important reference, the initiative buying tail which was broken today, which comes to around 553,330. I think I'll put up the exact levels in the hypos for tomorrow. And this pullback high of K, you can see it is a very small nuance, but it is very important. Why? Because it is stalled right at where we had a monthly reference. This is the monthly VWAP zone, 56205. So it is so clearly, neatly showing us that the buyer is not able to take this out. So the seller will be more prominent over here. So as long as this will be our first supply for the coming sessions, as long as we are below this, we are looking for more downside in the Bank Nifty spot also. So let's now move on to the futures chart. And before that, I'll just quickly minimize this. So Bank Nifty was stronger of the two. So immediate reference in Bank Nifty is this 55923, which is the VPOC from 23rd of June. And then we have this 55682, which is the weekly VPOC, which we already have seen on the weekly charts. So if it continues lower, then the 13th June profile, the buying tail comes to 55332, which is then matching with the weekly buying tail, and the swing low of 55149. So these would be the downside references in spot for the coming sessions, and we'll have to see how the Bank Nifty negotiates at these important references. So let's now move on to the futures chart. Start with the Nifty future. And you can see Nifty futures left a very important extension handle on Friday. 24925 was that reference. And you can see how this anchored VWAP from the swing high of 24th of July is also coinciding with that. And what we did today was get a bounce after the lower open. We got back into this range. We did the 80% rule in this value. We almost did the 80% rule. So we just stopped short of the value area high. Why? Because we had this important 24925 extension handle. The highs we made today was right at that extension handle. It was a typical seaside, and that was telling us that the buyer has failed, and the buyer failing gave us a very good move to the downside. We completed the 180R objective, and we are looking to complete the 280R objective also on the downside in the coming sessions. So we have closed as a neutral extreme profile to the downside, and as always, this neutral extreme VWAP of today would be the important reference. This would be our reference for tomorrow and the rest of the series, and as long as we are holding that, we are looking for more downside in the coming sessions. So this 24776 is the neutral extreme VWAP, which will be our reference on the upside for tomorrow. And yes, we have an extension handle at the IBL of today, which is at 24751. So that will be our immediate reference. So 24751, 24777 would be our upside supply zone for Nifty futures. So let's now move on to the Bank Nifty. And because we are making new lows for the series in Nifty futures, we have already broken below the swing low of 13th of June. So we can expect more downside, and because the lower VPOC is much earlier point, this is 8th of May, which is at 24,300. So this could be our probable target getting into the monthly expiry. That is if we continue to form value lower and we get more sell side uh, confirmations on the profile or the order flow. So that is as far as the Nifty futures is concerned. A quick look at today's order flow. This is the 30-minute order flow. You can see we opened lower, tested this low of 24751, which in fact was the midpoint of the buying tail of 13th of June. And we had them marked in our daily report, which has the futures. 24745 was our lower reference, and we held right above that. We got back into previous range and value, but we made a typical seaside, and the typical seaside was seen because we got a RS bar. You can see how this RS bar came in, not just RS but also the POC shifted from 24800 to 24910. So when it is showing you this, you know that the upside is done and you need to come out of longs, and that is what we did at the VMR VLD also. We booked our long position. We were looking for a seaside extension to play out, but we immediately came out after the seaside I was done right at that extension handle of Friday. And then what did we do? We came back below VWAP, we tested VWAP, we got an RB bar. This POC of morning was holding, and later on in the day we got this IS30. This IS30 came right at this level, and once this broke, this IS30 got activated. We went on to get the target 1 and target 2 to the downside. It got activated at the break of 24802. The stop loss was 24850, and you can see how we have hit the target 1 and target 2. Target 2 I think was coming to 24706. We were tracking this in the VLD, and we were looking to keep holding the shorts till that target was hit. And you can see right there the POC again shifted to the downside. So the shifting of POC is very important. Once you get into a short side trade, you will need to book profit at the targets, and then when you see this POC shifting here and then the POC shifting to the lows, you know that the downside is getting stalled. And there were no more IS signals on the 30-minute time frame, so that is why that was more telling that you need to at least part book your shorts and hold on to rest with stop loss at cost. So that is what the order flow of Nifty futures was looking like today. Let us now quickly move on to the Bank Nifty futures before we can wind up. And we have the Bank Nifty profile chart on screen. And you can see again how this lower open gave us a open rejection reverse kind of a start, but then that was stalled by this seaside. So the seaside was stopped right at this pullback high. So these pullback highs leave important cues in market profile. Structure wise, the auction tells us that this is not able, this up move is got exhausted here. That means there is supply which is active over here. So that is what happened. Today seaside was not able to take off this pullback high, and we came back to break below this buying tail and confirmed a failed auction at the top. So we have gone on to tag this 56133 reference, which was a VPOC from 23rd 56163, and we had the HVN from the same day at 56050. So what we have done, we have tested that 56050, but this was where demand had come in. So we will have to see if this holds or if we get a sell side signal in the order flow tomorrow here. If we are getting a sell side signal, then we are looking for a test of this buying tail 55700, this is, and this lower VPOC of 55350 in the coming sessions. So this is how we are placed in the Bank Nifty futures. I'll just quickly move on to the order flow chart of Bank Nifty futures, and you can see how same thing. The morning low 56266 was just above the neutral extreme VWAP on the monthly time frame, and we have given uh, prominence. We every time we speak about this, we tell you how it is important to have those references marked out both in spot as well as in futures. So when that was holding, we were expecting it to give a bounce, but you can see how this 56670 seaside held and the POC shifted right where the monthly POC is. So this is how you know that the auction is now making a base at a certain position to move away. So this was a seaside and this POC shifted right where the monthly POC was 56600, and you can see the POC remained there throughout the day, and we made a probe lower. We broke below this. We broke below uh, the 56200 reference also of the monthly VWAP, and then we have gone on to just fall short of that HVN of 56050. So that 56050 would be our reference for tomorrow. If we come below that and sustain, then we are looking for more downside in the coming sessions. So that is it for today from my side, guys. In case you have any queries, please feel free to post them. I'll be happy to answer them before we can call it a evening. These references which I have discussed would be updated in the weekly report as well as the daily report. So you'll have both the spot levels as well as the future level marked out in the forum section of our website. So you can come back later and check those posts, and you will be able to use those references for the coming days. You- and any queries, my X ID is at Uttam Goel. You can please feel free to post your queries even on X. I'll be happy to answer them. So thank you guys for joining in. That is it for today from my side. And let's have a great monthly expiry and look forward to a great month of trading in August.